Hi, Peggy. Thanks so much for doing this interview.
Hey.
That was fun just to even get connected. I feel like we've
What an
learned so
adventure.
much. For folks that might watch this video, can you go ahead and share with them what your current position is? Your name and your current position. Let's start there.
My name is Peggy King. I work as it's called a family mediation specialist at Family Court in Clark County, Nevada. I mediate custody disputes, essentially.
Awesome. And how did you come to find this job or pursue a career in dispute resolution?
My last year in law school, I took I was taking two classes, a seminar on domestic violence, as well as the alternative dispute resolution class with Professor Gene Sternlight, who's phenomenal. I had been halfway through law school. I wasn't even sure I wanted to continue because it didn't seem like my cup of tea, but in the ADR class, everything kind of seemed to come together. And I was working, I had a paper due for each class, so I just kind of combined and talked about mediating disputes with domestic violence victims, whether or not mediation is appropriate if you've been a victim of domestic violence. So, so I looked at a bunch of different protocols in different jurisdictions, and that's I essentially came to my conclusion was that yes, with screening it is appropriate because domestic violence victims often do not have a say in what's happening with their children, by people being protective. So I thought that this empowers victims, but it depends on the level.
Yeah, like gives them a voice, even though you want to be protective for folks who may have difficulty feeling empowered. You at least need to give that chance instead of being overly protective.
Correct. And if there's a disparity in power, how to balance that? You can still balance it and do mediation. You can do shuttle mediation, where they're not in the room at the same time and that sort of thing. So there are methods, and they still can have a voice themselves.
So while you were in that last semester of law school and exploring dispute resolution, what type of advice did you get about the possibility of having a career in mediation right out of law school?
Pretty much that it is not going to happen. But it was, there are, in Nevada, in Clark County, there is a group called Neighborhood Justice Center, which was doing more community mediation. It's come under a lot of different headings. It is part of the Clark County government. It was under Parks and Rec. It was under a few different things. It's under court right now, but at the time I did some training with them when it was under Parks and Rec, and they were doing a lot of community mediation, which I really found interesting, and I volunteered with them for a long time. And by statute, if there's a custody dispute, parents have to attempt mediation. So when I saw a position available at Family Court, I applied for it, and I was fortunate enough to get it.
That's wonderful.
But that was a little bit of doing different things right out of law school. I had a career in show business, so I was working backstage, and I was a union member. I was IATSE, working backstage at a production. So I was still doing that in the nighttime and doing other little things in the daytime.
Well, yeah, so two follow-up questions. The first one that I'm so fascinated about your career before law school, I know that so many of us got the advice that without practicing law for 20 years or working in family law for however long before becoming a divorce mediator or custody mediator, the likelihood of us getting those jobs is very low. Mm-hmm. How do you see, or do you see your previous career impacting your ability to work in mediation?
I do. Oddly, I was a clown for years. I traveled with Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus. I was graduated. I got my bachelor's degree in '77, and then went to Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Clown College in '77, and then toured on the circus for years. Then went to Japan, and eventually moved to Las Vegas to work at Circus. So for more than 2 decades, I was pretty much a circus performer. I look at clowning as kind of a creative process. If a clown drops their hat on the floor, they don't just pick up their hat and put it on their head. They can kick it to their head. They can do a somersault into it. They can use a teeter board to kick it up to their, there's a lot of different ways to get a hat from the floor to your head. So my perspective is that mediation is similar to that is looking for creative resolutions to, if you can say the only way to get the hat on your head is to pick it up and put it on your head, and somebody says, no, it isn't, it's got to be done this way, then maybe there is a third way, like that, like that illustration they do, the window in the library, it's got to be open, so they end up opening it in the other room, so for what is the purpose? So to me, clowns do that. So to me, it's...
Your skill as a clown actually makes you a better mediator because you have to have that creativity and the ability to see multiple options to any situation.
I'm not going to say better,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm not going to, but I mean, it is, to me, I think it's useful. I don't know, I'm not going to say I'm more creative than anybody else, although I am. No, but, it's my skill. I work with people who come from a social work background, and they have skills I don't have. So, and that's another thing I like about mediation is everybody comes to it with their own set of skills, similar to a clown. If you're a musical, you do your gags like, musical gags. If you're a gymnast, I happen to have been a gymnast, you do like gymnastic things. So I think the same thing with, mediators.
When the organization was looking to hire you, to see you as a prospective employee, that they noticed the similarities, or no?
Well, it honestly gets me in a lot of doors for interviews because it's a little bit odd.
Yeah.
So, people just say, well, let's just look at her, so that's helpful. And I had, when I was in law school, I worked for I did the clinic, the child welfare clinic. So I have interviewed kids, and I thought out of law school, if I finished the degree, I would end up being a CAP attorney. So that was kind of what I was gearing myself to doing, child welfare type thing. So I had interviewed kids, so I had that ability. Plus, as a clown, I worked with kids. So we do interview kids sometimes in custody disputes to do child interviews. So, and I had volunteered a lot through the Neighborhood Justice Center. So I think the clowning plus there was a little bit of, it wasn't just clowning. So it looked like I had a little bit of other credibility. So I think it just...
So, for other folks who might be in law school and just discovering those dispute resolution courses, and similarly getting the advice that good luck, it's not likely that they'll find a career in mediation, what advice would you give them, given that you have actually been able to succeed and create that career in dispute resolution?
I don't think it's going to come immediately out of law school. I mean, maybe it will, but for me it did not. And there's a woman who was just graduated from Boyd, where I attended Boyd. And she's really, really wanting to work at the Family Mediation Center. There's no jobs available at the moment because it's a great job. But she is really dedicated. And so I think there's that. She's done a lot of different things, and she has worked with the law school. So there's a lot of volunteering, and I think if you really, really want something, and you put everything in place, it'll probably come.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's been...
Not right away.
But not right away. Tell us a little bit about what you did in between graduating and before you got this position with the courts and the family court.
Well, I had been working backstage with one of the shows on the Strip. I worked as a stagehand, worked with the stagehand union, and I had done that all through law school. I went to law school in the daytime and worked night times. So I stayed on there part-time. I worked then when I got hired through a couple of different things through the city of Las Vegas. They had something called the Senior Citizens Law Project. So I was working part-time for them. So then I had to quit working full-time backstage. So I worked part-time with one of the Cirque things. So I was working with Cirque, volunteering as a mediator in the day, doing some little law jobs. Then I worked for the state of Nevada. So I worked for the city of Nevada. Then the state of Nevada has something called Nevada Attorney for Injured Worker. So I worked as a legal researcher there and still volunteered. So I was doing some little legal sort of things, but mostly still volunteering with the Neighborhood Justice Center. So
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot to your story, Peggy. It's really fun to hear about your previous career and how it's um, influenced, shaped, informed your work as a mediator, and how you were able to make that
Yes.
and how you were able to make that choice to continue to pursue something in mediation and get it. Um,
And
and I really,
there are a lot of volunteer places, so I would urge that too. I mean, we also in Nevada we have I can't believe I just forgot the name of it. Mediators of Southern Nevada, which is an organization of which I'm president. Actually, it's a little nonprofit, so they just needed somebody to be president. It wasn't like it's a great. They were looking for people, so so there's lots of things.
yeah. No, these local mediation centers, such as yours that you're president of, have been hugely instrumental for folks in starting their careers. I mean, this is the third or fourth mediation organization, membership organization that I've heard people mention that have actually been very informative for folks' careers. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
So anyway.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and leave it there. Thanks again for taking the time, and it was fun to meet you over this video conference hangout.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Peggy.
Okay. Bye-bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.